I think a lot of the time there's a expectation that you always need to have an idea of what it is that you're doing, or a final kind of plan that will come to some elaborate finale, essentially, that everything will work out, and that there's a clear pattern to everything that you do. And that is important, to have that structure in place, or an idea of a misty idea of what it is that you want to do that isn't necessarily fully set in stone yet. But to have a total idea of everything that you want to do at maybe my age, which is again 20 years old, I don't think is necessarily normal. And if that is the case, I think that's not really normal in itself, to have an idea of everything that is what you want to do. You're kind of every part of your life kind of laid out in front of you with the exact things that you're going to do within it. But I also think that that's also a product of just, again, having more exposure to people and seeing what it is that they're doing. And this idea that you need to have a plan for everything, and everything needs to, again, as I said, come to that elaborate kind of final stage where everything is perfectly sequential. And that's not necessarily the case, especially as young individuals where you are truly just getting started with things. And again, I have no idea what I'm even doing making this video. I do it simply because I like speaking to a camera, and yeah, I just like speaking to a camera. It's as simple as that. There's no elaborate scheme behind any of this. It's just, I like doing this, so I'm gonna give it a go. And I don't think that happens a lot anymore, because there's an unwillingness to go into, to do something that is unknown and is ambiguous. And people view that, if that thing necessarily doesn't work out into an amazing, measurable success in their eyes, they'll view that as potentially a waste of time. And is that really a waste of time? I wouldn't necessarily say it is. I think it's just trying new things, understanding that you don't know what it is that maybe you want to do. You don't know what it is that like your calling per se. So you're just going to try different things. And I don't think there's anything wrong with trying things with no idea of what's happening, because I think taking that action is probably one of the most important steps that you can do. And in like a time where you're seeing all this evidence of what other people have done, and this idea that you need to have this all figured out isn't strictly true. And I've got like some random stuff here, which is like, everyone wants to seem like they have an idea. Everyone wants to seem like they've got some big elaborate plan. Or maybe not necessarily everyone, but I think internally we look at other people and we view them and go, oh, they look like they've got everything figured out. And in reality, obviously, that's not always the case, but it's just that external viewpoint, and that external viewpoint kind of reflecting internally in our own minds, because obviously we're thinking about like what it is that they're doing and what it is that you're doing, and obviously comparing oneself to what other people are doing, and seeing how maybe someone's kind of doing so much better for themselves, essentially, and that you're scared of falling behind. And this idea of kind of falling behind and not being where your cohort should be, or people of your age group should be at X part of their life. But obviously things aren't that sequential. Things aren't just a pattern that goes upwards and upwards, or there isn't just a constant trajectory that is continuous and exactly the same. And to have this idea that you need to have this plan, you need to be on this constant trajectory. You don't need to take time out to maybe figure out what it is that you want to do. And I think a lot of people don't realize is that they have the time. And I was definitely a culprit of this, thinking I haven't had the time to have an idea of what it is that I want to do, and being really caught up with this kind of mindset of I need to stay at pace with everyone. But in reality, there is no race. It's just you at the end of the day. And that's the general point here. It's just you. You don't need to have an idea of what it is that you're doing. Try new things. People are unwilling to try new things because there's a friction there that you have to overcome. And when I say friction, I mean like the idea that there are mental blocks and boundaries in your head that basically inhibit you from doing what it is that you want to do, because of either obviously things like fear, anxiety, judgment. All these things are kind of the idea of friction. And again, what I had here is it's like, just because something's not clear cut doesn't necessarily mean that you should be not do it or not give it a try because it's not exactly set in stone. Just because you have no idea what it is that you're doing doesn't necessarily mean that you should stray away from trying new things. And especially if it's for things like fear of judgment. But reality, let's be honest, like, let's say you went to the shop today and you're picking out some food and someone does maybe something a bit clumsy. You're not necessarily going to think in a week's time the clumsy thing that person did, or how they didn't necessarily make themselves seem like a totally normal human being, or they did something that was like, again, the general point is that you're not really thinking about other people in comparison to the amount you're thinking about yourself. And when you do view those other people, it's for a minute fraction of the insight that you have into their life in that specific moment, and is not reflective of who they are. And so what you do is you take that, then you take everything you know about yourself, because obviously you know quite a lot about yourselves, don't you? Let's be honest, you know you probably better than anyone else, unless you've got a very close friend. But the general point is, you take the fraction what you see from them, and you take everything about yourself, and you go, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea if this is gonna turn out well. Look, he had this figured out from day one. He had this plan where he was gonna do this, then he was gonna do that, and he was gonna elevate himself here. And now look at his trajectory, it's just completely linear. But you just view it as linear. I don't think potentially they would. But again, it's that idea that you need to have that plan. You need to have everything figured out. You're unwilling to go into kind of the wilderness per se and try different things. And as a result of that, you probably, by not trying new different things, you probably continue to have no idea what it is that you're doing, because there's a unwillingness to kind of, or a mental unwillingness to kind of solve the issue. But yeah, this was kind of just me off the top of my head saying that I think everyone kind of likes to purport an idea, or internally at least, we think that everyone else has got things figured out and they have a plan and everything was sequential, when in reality, that's not the case. And it's like everyone's in the back of their heads going, oh, look at him, and everyone's doing the same. And everyone's thinking that the other person has it figured out, while that individual is there thinking, I have no idea what I'm doing, I'm just following what it is that other people do. And so to have no idea what it is that you're doing is totally okay. And I've said no idea what it is that you're doing way too many times now. So yeah.